This is Father Patrick Briscoe.
And this is Father Gregory Pine.
Welcome to Godsplaining. Thanks to all who support us. If you enjoy our podcast, please consider making a monthly donation to us on Patreon. Be sure to like and subscribe to Godsplaining wherever you listen to your podcasts. We recently this fall had a couple, well, actually this year we've had a couple great pilgrimages.
We have.
In fact. I'm thinking most recently of the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage.
Which is fire.
Because
Flames.
That's coming. We're coming just on the heels of that as we record our next slate of episodes. So that's what's on my mind. Father Gregory, what was your experience of the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage like this year?
Yes, so vibes. I would say let's start with vibes.
Yeah. How were they?
The vibes were great. Yeah, I think that
Would you say they were immaculate?
I would say they were immaculate insofar as that's a motto of the podcast. Godsplaining. The vibes were immaculate. Yeah, it was great because it's the type of thing now which is recognizably corporate, not in the sense of like corporate America, but in the sense of it's a Dominican work. So it's not the work of any one individual, although there are individuals who contribute mightily to it, among whom you are numbered, and Father Joseph Anthony as well. But it's the type of thing about which everyone's excited and for which everyone pitches in. And I think that people come because it's a Dominican thing, not because it's like this dude, that dude, or the other dude, but because it's like, these are the people that preach the rosary. This is the rosary to be prayed. Let's get after it, boys and girls. So sweet. Yeah, it was super sweet. Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, 3 years in, I'm really excited to see how the project will continue to mature, because you do things, some of them work, some of them don't, and it's fun to be honest and reflective about that, and to see some of those things dial in and continue to improve. So I think some of the changes we made for the schedule, for example, are important. Or like this year, there were food trucks, which was great.
Nice.
That contributed to festival-like atmosphere, I would say. It never rains on the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage,
Exactly.
so that's a plus.
Yeah, even when it rains, it doesn't rain.
Yeah, it does drizzle, but
or spit, as some people say.
So that does happen.
I think people in South Carolina say the devil was beating his wife.
I'm really glad I didn't know that, because I would have been tempted to say that.
Yeah, it's best not
and
to.
Yeah. That's not the place for that, for sure.
Yeah.
So I like that, and I like seeing all the brothers thrive in all their different roles.
Yeah.
Like this year's preacher, Father Austin Licky, was just phenomenal. It was really good preaching. And it was really good preaching by Father Austin. No one else could have preached like that.
Yeah.
It was really seeing him at his best. And the same for Father Andrew, who delivered the homily during the Mass, and Father Jose Maria, who was preaching in Spanish downstairs. So I like that it allows the brothers to be the brothers. It's corporate, like you say, and really a shared fraternal thing. The Hillbilly Thomists were saying that it was, if not their very best, one of their very top performances.
That's awesome.
And the stage, the setting, the vibe went into that. Even though it was drizzling,
It made the lights look super cool.
I think it accentuated the lights. And they stopped the show, and people were standing there in the drizzle, screaming for them to continue playing. And so they came back and they did their encore. They did "I'm a Dog," which some of the listeners of this podcast might recognize as our intro. And they did "Holy Ghost Power." And when they did "Holy Ghost Power," the crowd lost its mind collectively. So it was just overall great event. But like growing up, I can't say we did a lot of that in my family. I remember one year going to a Eucharistic Congress at Notre Dame. Okay. That was around the year 2000. I think it was the year 2000.
Okay.
And I remember that being really important to my dad.
That's awesome.
And I have a rosary still from that Eucharistic Congress. So we did do some of that, but we weren't a family that went on pilgrimage the way the Pine family went on pilgrimage. For example,
it's interesting. You have the people from whom I still have rosaries. I don't keep many because I'm usually just kind of like handing them out. Martha McNeil, I still have the rosary that she gave me.
Oh, come on.
I have a random rosary from Johannes aus Österreich.
Yeah.
And then I have a rosary from Augustine Wetta, Father Augustine Wetta, a guest
I'd
on this
keep
show.
that one too. If you have not listened to the guest episode with Father Augustine Wetta, do yourself a favor, stop this episode, go listen to that episode, and then come back and listen to this episode.
It begins with a your mom joke. Oh, and I have one from Lauren Gonzalez, who works for us. So my family didn't take vacations. We took pilgrimages. That's a slight exaggeration because we did go down the Jersey Shore every once in a while because if you're from southeastern Pennsylvania, that's just what you do. So we'd spend some time at Long Beach Island. But for the most part, we just went as a family to Medjugorje especially. And there were times when we went to Medjugorje by way of other holy sites. So I recall, first time we went, it was 1991. I was 3. All I remember is that it's this really cool visor, which my dad called my smoke-a-puss hat. I don't know what that means, but just file that away. And then we went again in 1996. That trip, we flew into Paris. We visited Rue de Bac, the body of St. Vincent de Paul, which is just around the corner, Notre Dame de Paris. And then we took a sleeper train from Paris down to Lourdes. During that trip, my sister accidentally pulled the emergency brake, which brought the train to a screeching halt. A story for another podcast. But then we spent a couple of days in Lourdes. I had McDonald's at Lourdes. That was a significant moment for me as an 8-year-old. We also spent an incredible amount of time at the sanctuary, less significant for me as an 8-year-old. But that's just because I was gauging my experience on the physicality thereof. And then, we went to Medjugorje probably like every 3 years from that point onward. But my parents led pilgrimages there maybe twice or 3 times a year for like a period of 20 years. So pilgrimage was just big for our family.
For me, I learned it, as I said, we did do a few things as a family, and I remember the Eucharistic Congress. But for me, I really learned the importance of pilgrimage coming to the order, doing these walking pilgrimages. Innocent Smith and Gabriel Toretta, then student brothers, now wonderful priests, organized various walking pilgrimages that I was sort of along for the ride for. And then I went up with the community when I was up at St. Denis for the summer. We went to a bunch of the sites in Canada. So that was like my first major pilgrimage, actually, that we were doing as pilgrimage. And we went to see the Shrine of Saint Anne-Beaupré and some of the other sites in Quebec. And so that was formative because it takes a little bit of intentionality to learn, what am I doing here? Because so much of a pilgrimage is just an experience that's happening to you. And if you're not prepared or intentional about that, it can be wasted. And so we've talked a little bit about this, about like part of pilgrimage is being
out of your element,
worn out and frustrated and lost and tired. And that's a significant thing. And all of that needs to be offered up to the Lord.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of people imagine that a pilgrimage is a retreat on the move. Like I think the best pilgrimages are often places to which you proceed or to which you progress on foot or after a laborious series of travels. So we have this sense of displacement, but we think that when we get there, or maybe even on the way to a certain extent, it's going to be like a retreat. It's typically not a retreat in that you don't get the sleep. You don't necessarily eat as well. You're not in your ordinary rhythms. You don't have access to prayer like you might have access to prayer back at home. Like everything is being upended or everything is being revolutionized. And that's precisely the point, because you're supposed to give yourself to it, not so much as like something emotional or psychological as something physical. Like it's a spiritual exercise. And when you put yourself through the steps, it has a way by which of sanctifying you as a kind of like participation in the sacramental life. So, walking pilgrimages have been a big part of our Dominican formation because, like you mentioned, Father Gabriel and Father Innocent, but it was something that we also kind of tried our hand at early going. Like that same summer when you were in Hanover, I was in Providence. We did a 7-church walk. And again, it doesn't rain on the Rosary Pilgrimage. It doesn't rain on the 7-church walk. It lightning storms. And so like we were...
Not on the Rosary Pilgrimage.
Yeah, not on the Rosary Pilgrimage. Yeah, just on this thing that I planned from St. Pius the V. But like we were going up towards Federal Hill. We were at Holy Ghost. We step outside. The heavens opened. Ooh, it was devastating. We were just coming right up on Federal Hill, and we got to one of these little bistros, like Via Roma or something like that. Yep. And this guy Dean, I walked inside to ask him like, can we take shelter under your like canopy, awning, basically your awning? And he's like, fine, you can come inside. I was like, thank you. And then when we came in, they had just had like a little party or a reception for folks celebrating something. I don't know what, but they had a bunch of extra cannoli and coffee. He's like, would you like cannoli? Would you like coffee? I was like, this is the best pilgrimage ever. We didn't make it to the cathedral.
For the record, I lived in Providence for years, and no one gave me a free cannoli.
No free cannoli
on a pilgrimage.
That's right.
I've got many kind gifts from my friends there, but
I'm now lactose intolerant, so I suffered from ricotta ingestion. Nevertheless, so like I think this idea of like getting in your body out of your head into your spiritual life is really salutary. It's the type of thing that kind of can save us by getting us over ourselves.
Yeah, it matters. Change of scenery, very important. I very much agree. So with that in mind, let's talk about some of our top sites. In no particular order
order.
Among this top 7, but why is Medjugorje your favorite?
Yeah, no, so maybe just at the outset, there are a lot of folks who feel strongly about Medjugorje, strongly pro, strongly con. Or I don't know if con is a thing that people say, regardless. And so I would say, like, you don't have to go to Medjugorje. There we go, we said it. And also, like, when describing the events at Medjugorje...
You don't have to go to any of these places.
You don't have to go to any of these places, yeah. When describing the events at Medjugorje, the church encourages a certain caution. Like, the church's pastors shouldn't presume that everything that's going on there is true. There's been a kind of approbation given for the first few days' worth of apparitions, but the claim is that they've been ongoing for 44 years. So the church is going to have to take some time to review all that. But she's given, like, basically her nihil obstat in the sense that you can take diocesan pilgrimages, you can go under the banner of the Catholic Church without any hesitation. And I think the reason to go is that the claim is that they are ongoing. You know, so obviously it's a different kind of thing than Fatima or a different kind of thing than Lourdes, but the idea is like, it's Fatima. It's, you know, whatever it was, like 1913 or 1917, I've forgotten. Like, it's Lourdes. It's, you know, in the 1850s. Like, this, the thing is taking place. So that would be a reason for which one might go and profit from the graces which are made available. But for me, like, it's very much a place in which my ongoing conversion took shape. Because I went when I was 3, I went when I was 8, I went when I was 11, 13, 16, 18, 19, 20. You know, I just went a lot. And it was a place where I learned what it meant to believe, what it meant to hope, what it meant to love, and where my life kind of took definitive spiritual shape. And so for me, it's just like simple messages of Medjugorje are pray with the heart. She encourages, Our Lady of Medjugorje encourages us to pray the rosary, read sacred scripture, you know, kind of have a Bible enshrined on a family altar, make it a book that you use rather than a book that you just look at or kind of dust periodically. Holy Mass, you know, receive in a worthy state, go every day if you can. Fast. I just remember, like, it's a big thing. My father fasted on bread and water every Wednesday and Friday of my life. Still does. You know, that's like, this matters. When a man says this matters, it matters to those whom he loves. And then the last one is confession once a month. That's the encouragement. So Medjugorje was big for me, but it didn't have to be big for everybody.
Okay, so for me, my top would be Lourdes.
Okay.
And I love Lourdes because Lourdes is like one of the friendly places where you could go to some apparition sites and the Virgin Mary has bad news for you.
That's true.
But Lourdes is like nice mama who wants to heal you. and it's very consoling. And I think so many of us need healing graces. I've received my own there at Lourdes. A part of what I love about Lourdes is French culture, which has always been interesting to me, and a love for the French language. So I like how it's situated, obviously, abroad. I've had amazing experiences in the confessional at Lourdes, but when you learn more about Saint Bernadette, you learn that this image that I've offered is really just the tip of the iceberg, because the Virgin Mary asked for some very particular things at Lourdes, which is why it's such a great experience. Because you can arrive at Lourdes and you can think, wow, this is Catholic Disneyland, and someone really came up with lots of interesting things. Well, actually, everything that's done at Lourdes was asked for by the Virgin Mary. So, for example, one of the things you do at Lourdes is to drink from and wash with the water that came up from the spring that Bernadette dug. Why is there water? Well, because the Virgin Mary encouraged Bernadette to dig and to drink from and to wash with the water. So people have beautiful experiences in the healing baths. Or at Lourdes, there are beautiful chapels where you can go and light candles. You know, there's like a whole... so there are chapels, and then there's like that whole thing that looks like some kind of army dugout thing where there's just like all these places to light candles, and you think like, Catholics just enjoy lighting candles, so some French engineer came up with a cool way to make that accessible for pilgrims. No, the Virgin Mary told people to carry candles to the grotto in Lourdes. So it's part of the observance of attending to the Virgin Mary at Lourdes. Or the procession. The Virgin Mary asked for priests to come in procession in Lourdes because she said that people need to see priests praying. And that's part of what I love about Lourdes is you actually see that. And finally, what I love about Lourdes is that in Lourdes, you see the world kind of upside down. Because the Virgin Mary has given so many healing graces at Lourdes, the priority is actually to the sick. And of course, everyone who arrives there has some kind of ailment that needs to be healed, some kind of spiritual sickness. But many people are physically suffering. And at Lourdes, every effort is given to accommodate people with grave disabilities. And I like that very much because when I first went to Lourdes, I thought, this is like the world upside down. Like all the sick people are first and that's kind of nice. And then I realized, no, that's the world as it really should be.
Yeah.
Because this is what it was like when people were coming to Christ. When you read the Gospels, it's just the sick and everyone with every kind of brokenness who's just trying to get close and to near Him, and that's what Lourdes is.
Yeah. 2 quick Lourdes things apropos of the theme before we move on to further sites. After my first visit at the age of 8, from which I have few memories except the memory of McDonald's, the second time, the only other time that I went was at the age of 19. I was studying in Austria at Franciscan University's campus in Gaming, and most people to get to Lourdes would go to Paris and then drop down to Lourdes. I went the southern route, like through the mountains in effect, and I arrived in Grenoble because I wanted to make a quick visit to La Salette. But the thing is, I arrived after the one bus that day, and to go on taxi was 7 times my budget, and I wasn't old enough to rent a car, so I rented a moped. I had about 5.5 hours for my visit, and it took me approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes to get there because it was straight up into the French Alps. There were points at which I could have been running faster than I was mopeding. Yeah, it also rained. It drizzled that day on my Rosary pilgrimage.
Nice.
And I laid the bike down twice, but I was wearing boat shoes, which gave me this kind of superhuman water skiing capability. But it was to the point where, because it took me so long to get there, I only had 10 to 15 minutes at the shrine. And I really had to go to the bathroom, but I was like, I am not going to waste one of my minutes in the restroom. So you say Lourdes, happy place, La Salette, sad place. Our Lady goes there, weeps. Melanie and Maxine, their lives are terrible, but I got my 10 to 15 minute visit. I don't know if I'll ever go back again, because then I just drove right back down the Alps. I couldn't find the garage where I ought to return the thing, but eventually I did, and then I ate a pizza and got on a train. So, yeah, but when I got to Lourdes that second time, I volunteered. So it was at the train station to help the invalids, at the Accueil to help the invalids, and then at the baths especially, and then some work with the processions. But there was one time where I was working with 3 other men in a bath, helping male pilgrims to bathe, and their names were, you guessed it, Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel.
Incredible. Astonishing.
It was awesome.
I too have volunteered at Lourdes and recommend it heartily to anyone who is even thinking about it. Something will happen to you if you do that.
Yeah. Okay, next place. Which is your next on the list? We don't have to do them in rank order because we said that we weren't going to do them in rank order.
Okay, so my next place is Guadalupe.
Perfect. We have both recently been to Guadalupe.
I went to Guadalupe because someone invited me to.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, I like going. It was with Katie McGrady, and
Yep.
I love traveling with Katie. She's a marvelous person. It's just great to be with her. So she kind of talked me into it. She didn't have to talk me. She didn't have to work that hard to talk me into it. I was
4-hour
happy
flight
to
from
go
Washington,
with her.
D.C.
Yeah, exactly. It's very close. I once I started looking at it, I realized that Guadalupe is not on the other side of the world.
It's closer than Los Angeles.
It's very near to us, so everyone should go. What I loved about my experience there was the obvious invitation to piety from the people who were there. Now, I'm not pretending like all of these people are living every aspect of the church's moral law or whatever, but none of that matters at the shrine, because you're coming there because you need something from Mom. And at Guadalupe, the Virgin Mary's message in a special way to St. Juan Diego was, "Am I not your mother? Am I not your mother? You can trust that I will take care of everything." And you see it. You see people coming from all over the world, laying their prayers at Mom's feet. Also, the tilma is pretty wild.
It is pretty wild.
It's astonishingly beautiful. Yeah. I mean, depictions of it are lovely, and I've always liked it as an image, actually. And there are, of course, many things you could say about the image. We've talked about Guadalupe on the podcast before. But I was so struck by seeing it and just overcome with the simple fact that God did this. You look at the image, which is a miraculous image. It should not exist. It wasn't painted by anyone. Scientists don't know how it was made. It's survived multiple attempts of destruction. It's on fibers which should have disintegrated after 40 years, and it's hundreds of years old. I mean, the whole image is just miraculous in every respect.
Yeah.
And it's an astonishing thing to stand there before it and recognize that here's an invitation from God to love Him.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just there in May. I think one thing people don't recognize is that it's like a whole compound. So there are various churches there. So there's the present church, which has the tilma. The way that you revere or venerate the tilma is on a moving sidewalk, so as to ensure that no one camps out in front of it, thus making it inaccessible to other pilgrims, which is a little bit weird, but they did what they did. But it's prominently displayed behind the main altar. So when you assist at the Holy Mass, you can see it there, which is awesome. But then there are also other churches. So like the old basilica, which was destabilized by an earthquake at a certain point, it's just off the other side of the like principal plaza. But then you also have parish churches, which have been committed to different like religious communities at various points, some of whom would take care of the locals, some of whom would take care of kind of like indigenous persons. And so there's like a whole history to the place, which has evolved over the course of the last, 500 plus years. Well, I guess it's been 500 years-ish since the apparition itself. But it's set in Mexico City is a really cool place. I think like Mexicans,
it's so big.
They spread rumors abroad and saying like it's dangerous, don't come here. But that's just because they love their city and they don't want it to be overpopulated by tourists. It turns out it's an absolute gem. And when you go like downtown, there's these beautiful Dominican convents at various points in the city, which date to the 16th century. So there's this really cool history. And then you add in all the stuff, which is pre-Columbian.
The Metropolitan Cathedral is astonishingly beautiful.
Yeah. So I was there in May. I think it was May 8th. It was the day that Pope Leo was elected. So we had a Thomistic Institute seminar in the morning, and in the middle of it, one of the gals was like, "We have a pope." And so we took cars from the seminar to the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe because we had the mass there at like 1 in the afternoon. And, Pope Leo was announced while we were in the car. And so the first time that I celebrated mass with him in the Eucharistic prayer was at the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So it was like, cool. I was like, Leon. Party on, boys. It was hilarious too because like the guy with the noon mass, he preached for 17 minutes and he did like 18 minutes of intercessions and it lasted for 1,000 years. But then the auxiliary bishops of Mexico City were announcing the election of the Holy Father at 1:30. So like the sacristan was like, "Buddy, you got to celebrate this mass in efficient fashion," and there's like hundreds of people there. So I was like, "You asked the right man."
I was born for this.
Si se puede. So yeah, Guadalupe. Okay, next one. Have you been to Fatima?
I have not yet, but I'm going next summer.
Let's go. Okay, so I've been to Fatima twice, and I was there once in college for Holy Week at the invitation. Actually, it was an accidental invitation of one of my friends. I don't even know if he invited me. I think I just decided and showed up. But my friend Austin Ashcraft, friends with Adam Trufant, who is of Brevard, North Carolina fame, he was going to be there for Holy Week, so I just bopped in. And I didn't expect to be so blown away by Fatima. I subsequently went back for 1 day with my family, but I got bumped from a flight, so I ought to have been there for 2 days, but the flight was overbooked by one person. And the lady was like, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so, but when I went there, I didn't expect to be so blown away by these series of apparitions, which unfolded from May until October, culminating in the miracle of the sun, but which were for these 3 children. So we know them as Saint Francisco, Saint Jacinta, and then Servant of God, Lucia, who received apparitions in a time where the church itself was besieged by kind of anti-clerical and otherwise secular movements. And they received these promises or these secrets, which have subsequently been revealed, which concern basically like the whole church and the whole world. So it's like an apparition with kind of cosmic dimensions, signified by the miracle of the sun, but one that's addressed to children, which I think is significant. Like the fact that our faith, which ranges in cosmic fashion, can be applied. It can scale to the tiniest of hearts, which I find to be very beautiful. And there were various things, like the children themselves were they were prevented from attending to the apparitions as they wanted to by, like government officials. And then Our Lady accommodates them and shows up in another place on an unannounced day. But like it's typically the 13th of the month throughout the course of these, in effect, 6-7 months where Our Lady appears and delivers this kind of apocalyptic message with which St. John Paul II is very much bound up, but which conduces to our salvation. It's like she shows them the pits of hell, but it's for our salvation. It's the type of thing which is for little children. So I don't know. Have you come across much stuff in Fatima?
Well, there are 2 reasons why I'm eager to go there. The first is that the main statue, the central statue of the basilica there, was crafted by a friar of our province, and Sister Lucia said that it was the most resonant likeness, it was the most faithful likeness of the apparition that she saw. So I want to see the statue that Father McGlynn made.
Yep.
And I want to go there because at Fatima, the Virgin Mary revealed herself as Our Lady of the Rosary. So Lourdes, of course, she's revealing herself as the Immaculate Conception.
She has a rosary with 6 decades, the 6th decade being for the country of France.
Oh, neat.
Isn't that wild?
That.
Yeah.
Huh. That's funky.
She said, "I pray an extra decade for this country." The eldest daughter of the church.
Yeah, maybe they should have added 2. but so I want to go to Fatima because the Virgin Mary there has revealed herself as Our Lady of the Rosary, and in this way is a special patroness to the order.
Yeah.
The Queen of the Most Holy Rosary.
Beautiful. Okay, number 5.
Well, we talked about on our list another place that I haven't been, which I will go, but only if someone drags me.
Ah,
Santiago de Compostela.
exactly.
Lots of walking involved there.
Lots of walking. I suspect that we will go in due course because I'd love to go back.
At the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
We would have fun on that trip.
We would. We certainly would. No, it's guaranteed. So in the medieval world, pilgrimages were often assigned as penances. So the idea is that you have committed grave sins. Maybe it's apostasy. Maybe it's murder. Not you. Maybe it's apostasy. Maybe it's murder. Maybe it's maybe whatever. So like, okay, you need to perform penance in your body because penance has this satisfactory dimension. 4 main places to which people were assigned. I think it was Our Lady of Walsingham for people in the British Isles, Santiago de Compostela for the Iberian Peninsula, Rome for people kind of in that kind of area of the Alps, and then Jerusalem for those who could find their way there. So Santiago de Compostela is a very old pilgrimage. It's at the very least medieval, but it seems goes back towards what we might call the ancient church. And so the shrine is the bones of St. James. That's the reason for which the church is built there, because St. James made his way out to the Iberian Peninsula. And there are various routes that you can take, some of them coming from Portugal, some of them coming through Spain. And a lot of people in Europe, they just leave from their front door. People in France, people in Germany, a lot of people in Switzerland, they just walk out their front door, and that's the beginning of their pilgrimage. So you see these shells.
That's so great.
It's awesome. The definitive sign of Santiago de Compostela, or the pilgrimage, the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, is this shell pattern, which you can see in the eyes of Luce.
Come on. Our favorite pilgrim mascot.
Right.
Maybe we'll take Luce with us when we go on
She
pilgrimage.
deserves that kind of accompaniment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll see those shells throughout all of Europe, in effect. And people might go 500 miles, they might go 1,000 miles, you'll see people go 1,500 miles. But the basic idea is that the thing is set up to be walkable. So you have these albergues all along the way where you can stay for a very low rate, and you've got these pilgrim menus so you can eat for very inexpensive, but there's a kind of a culture of hospitality along the way, and everyone's telling each other Buen Camino. The idea is that we're all making our way towards something. And while there are quite a few religious believers, there's also quite a few non-believers on the way. It's become a kind of spiritual quest. So it's a very kind of fertile ground for testimony, for witness, for evangelization.
I was at a dinner recently with some friars, and they were suggesting that we propose to Pope Leo that he name us the Inquisitors of the Camino, and that he hand the Camino over to the Dominicans. We could set up like these toll booths,
That'd be awesome.
and people can't pass until they answer questions about the catechism.
Nice.
And that would be part of our reclaiming of the Camino as a Catholic enterprise.
Tremendous. I'm not against it.
The brethren are very creative.
They are. Yeah. Okay, we have 2 more on our list of 7, and I know that you want to talk about the Eternal City, the city of Rome.
Well, now I'm a resident there.
That's incredible.
So it's sort of it's going to be really guilty for me just to drink deeply from its riches. Rome is overwhelming. Rome is one of those places that assaults you, and I'm using that word because after just a little bit of time there, I find myself completely awash. You're just overpowered by all the beauty of the city. I think people call it the Eternal City because it will last unto eternity. Because it took an eternity to build, or because it takes an eternity to do anything there. So these are some suggestions as to the roots of the name. Rome has a character that, despite never having been there, I guarantee a Catholic will find his or herself at home.
Yeah.
Because you walk into so many of these churches and you see these astonishing works of art. I mean, here we have to give it to the Italians. I mean, they invented the Renaissance and left their mark on humanity with this city and with all of its artworks. You walk into any number of these churches and you see things that you have recognized, that you have seen for years, your whole life as a Catholic, and you see it in its proper context, and you realize something completely different about it.
Yeah.
And so you have the great pilgrim sites that belong to the Holy Father, the 4 major basilicas of Rome, St. Peter's, Mary Major, St. Paul outside the wall, and St. John Lateran, the Cathedral Basilica of Rome. And these churches are extraordinary. And then you have all the contributions or holdings of other religious orders, like the Jesu, the home of the Jesuits, Santa Maria Sopra Minerva, our great Dominican Basilica, which is objectively one of the most beautiful things in Rome. It's the only Gothic church left in Rome. Everything else was Baroqueified. You have our historic holdings like the one I live in, like Santa Sabina, that is one of these ancient basilicas that was built in 422, 100 years after the legalization of Christianity in the empire. So it's a place where you could very much be in touch with with the signs of Christianity, all the art that you're so familiar with, and really reach our ancient past, touch it very directly.
And we were just there together for the Jubilee of Young People. I should say for the Jubilee of Digital Missionaries and Catholic Influencers, and then the Jubilee of Young People.
Both of which were awesome.
Both of which were awesome in a way that was in no wise cringe, and in every respect really edifying, upbuilding. It was a week during which, we felt a lot of things. We experienced a lot of things. And they were long days, exigent days, but days that were really replete with grace. And I think that that's like... There's something about a Jubilee especially, so there's a little bit of time left in this Jubilee year, and if you have the opportunity to bop on over, if you can find yourself some cheap tickets, it's worth it because there are graces on offer, and that's not magical.
No.
That's just sacramental.
And get planning for 2033, the Jubilee Year of Redemption. There's going to be awesome things. So just block it out now in your life. You're going to need to be ready for it.
Boom. Okay, so last one that we want to touch on, we would be remiss if we didn't mention a pilgrimage site here in the United States of America. And so we adverted to the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage at the top of the hour. But here, as we wind things up, we want to bring up the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception.
In Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C., which is a shrine to Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception, who is patroness of the Americas, patroness of our great country. But I know it's a church for which you have great affection, so maybe
I do. I love our basilica. So one of the reasons why I love it is because it represents the United States. So there are images of Our Lady from all over the world there, and it's kind of eclectic. Not everyone appreciates that. I really love it because every nation has, the sons and daughters of every nation have arrived here on America's shores, and they've brought with them the way that they've come to know Our Lady. So there are many beautiful depictions. You can find, for example, Our Lady of Altötting, the Virgin Mary to whom Pope Benedict had great devotion.
Yep.
Where there's a little marker there where he stopped and prayed when he visited the basilica. And the same, you could see Our Lady of Czestochowa, where St. John Paul II stopped and prayed when he visited the basilica. And so it represents genuinely what the Church in the United States is. One of the bishops of Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I'm from, Archbishop John Francis Knoll, the founder of our Sunday Visitor, he oversaw a lot of the fundraising efforts and himself united the American people, the Catholics in the United States, behind the building of the shrine. And so our generation is not aware of that because we just inherited it, but it was really the kind of achievement of the nation, of the Catholics of the country, but all being brought together in this project to make something that was a visible sign the Catholics had arrived here and we were here to stay.
Yeah.
And one of the recent evidences of that we've seen is that during the earthquake, which took place when we were student brothers here in Washington, D.C., our basilica did not suffer severe damage from said earthquake. Other notable churches in Washington, D.C. suffered millions of dollars of damage for which they were not insured because they didn't have earthquake insurance, just for example. So the Lord wants our basilica to endure and has protected it.
He has indeed. And I think there are like beautiful little kind of gentle touches throughout the basilica. Like, for instance, they built the lower basilica first, as makes sense in the ordinary kind of manner of construction. But that lower altar, I believe it was one of the fundraisers who solicited donations from people named Mary.
Yeah, something like 20,000 women.
Okay, but it was like $1 or $2 or $3. And apparently like all of their names are somehow enshrined in that altar. So there's a sense like there's a real investment on the part of the people of God. Like they have brought the choice portions. They have brought the first fruits. And that there's this kind of attachment of the people to the place because it represents something of their labor and certainly something of their love. And it's a place where we were solemnly professed, where we were ordained deacons, where we were ordained priests. So it's a place that we've shed a lot of tears and certainly experienced a lot of graces.
I think they're still mopping up the floor.
They are indeed, as was the case with St. Dominic before us. So, all right, you want to do a lightning round at the end?
Yeah,
People are going to be disappointed to hear that their favorite shrine didn't make our list of 7, and there's always bound to be disappointment in this world, but we thought we'd go through a couple of others.
Okay, so I'm going to stay in the United States.
Okay.
The Shrine of Our Lady Guadalupe in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's a really beautiful shrine, recently construction. Cool backstory behind it. Cardinal Burke has really animated it, and it's a lovely place to pray. If you can't get to Mexico City, go there.
Okay. Mine is random, the Flüeliramft, which is basically a pilgrimage route in Switzerland associated with St. Nicholas of Flue, a 15th century mystic. He was a married man. He was a farmer. He was a warrior. He was also a kind of like judge and political mover and shaker, but he helped secure peace during that period some think by miraculous means, and he dedicated himself to a kind of eremitical life, cool mystic thing. So like you can walk from Cairns to Flüeli and down to Sachsen where his body is, and then go around the entire Zana Sea, but it's a place where the peace of God reigns through the intercession of St. Nicholas of Flue, patron of Switzerland.
Nice. The Shrine of St. Martin of Tours in Tours, France. It was, of course, one of the great shrines of medieval Europe. Has suffered lots of destruction over the ages, but has been rebuilt. It's really lovely. It's the first place I remember praying in front of the body of a saint in an intentional way, and it's kind of cool because I was baptized at St. Martin of Tours Parish.
That's awesome. Staying in France, we have to mention La Sainte Baume, which is the shrine of Saint Mary Magdalene, Sainte Marie Madeleine, which has been entrusted to different religious orders over the ages, but at present is entrusted to the Dominicans. So, as some people will tell you, France is the most beautiful country in the world, Provence is the most beautiful region in France, and La Sainte Baume is the most beautiful hill in Provence. So there's this grotto with one of the bones of Saint Mary Magdalene, and then on top of that same hill, there's a chapel where she is said to have prayed, and then across the way, the Basilica of Saint-Maximin and Sainte Marie Madeleine, where her cranium, what's the word for that? Her skull is there.
Headpiece.
Yeah, exactly.
Dome bit.
So beautiful, peace reigns, and it's a kind of like first stop in the evangelical efforts of ancient Christians in the Latin West.
Some people are going to be wondering, why didn't you guys talk about the Holy Land? Well, that's because that's a whole episode. I like to talk about all the churches of the Holy Land. But I will point out kind of a random one that I really love, that I was very moved by, which is the Church of the Transfiguration, which is really lovely on top of Mount Tabor. I was there alone with one other person during my trip there last Christmas, which Select International helped me put together so that we could talk about the experience of Christians there. And what I appreciated about that church so much was how it represented the mystery of the biblical event that happened there. That church very much allows one to enter into Christ's revelation.
We could go on forever and ever. Bologna with the shrine of our Holy Father St. Dominic. Toulouse with the shrine of our brother St. Thomas Aquinas. Any number of sites associated with the Dominicans. I'm inclined to give a shout out to Nuestra Senora de Chiquinquirá in Colombia, which had who had a big formative influence on me while I was assigned there. Or I know that you're attached to places in Poland from your your time there. Yeah, exactly.
Hoping to go back.
But I feel like we probably have to wrap it up.
I think so. Father Gregory, thank you for joining me to talk about pilgrimages. But thank you to you, our friends and listeners, who bothered to listen to this episode on pilgrimage. I hope that if you haven't made a trip to one of these places, you would think about it because it's worth the investment and full of spiritual graces. If you are trying to convince someone in your life to join you on a pilgrimage, send them this episode. Hopefully, our encouragement will help you put a trip together and you could set out on a great adventure wherein you will find many graces hidden. Please support our project if you've enjoyed this or any other episode of Godsplaining. Consider becoming a monthly patron of ours on Patreon. You can find information about that, shop merch, and visit by visiting our website. These are the words that I'm looking for. By visiting our website, godsplaining.org. You can also see there information about upcoming events and the details about the latest goings-on of the Friars. Sign up to receive our monthly newsletter, which has increasingly interesting musings and little behind-the-scenes factoids about what we're up to. But most importantly, we ask that you would pray for us. Please know that we're praying for you. God bless.
Father Patrick, let's just do some random word association. Okay, Second World War.
Battle of the Bulge.
Nice. Dental hygiene.
My father.
The Fast and the Furious.
IndyCar.
Nice. Subscribe.
Godsplaining.
Yeah, boy. Seamless. Get after it. Subscribe to this channel.